Howdy, good evening, neighbors. Sorry for the casual attire. However, we have been up pretty late, and it's pretty late now following the budget negotiations. And the reason that we have been following it very closely is because of our promise to our dreamers and our DACA neighbors that we would continue to fight to make sure that they are included and protected if we decide to pass another CR, a continued resolution bill. So I just wanted to update you on where we stand and what we plan to do. As many of you know, I'm not sure I have to give a lot of background, but President Obama had signed a resolution protecting our dreamers. And the reason he did was because at that time, our Republican leadership, at the congressional leadership, did not do their job to reach an agreement with a bipartisan, responsible immigration reform. So President Obama used the executive order and his executive privilege to sign that executive order, which at the time Robert Pittenger said, he wants to be king, and created all kinds of ruckus about him signing an executive order. So then we fast forward, and President 45 in September of this last year reversed that executive order and said, Congress, now I want you to do your job. Do your job like you were supposed to do in the first place, and fix this issue. And they've had over 4.5 months, and they still have not even addressed this issue or even tried to negotiate or reach an agreement, which is what governance is all about. And so when we got towards the end of December, a budget needed to be passed. And Democrats like myself and other Democrats and progressives basically said that we will not allow a budget to be passed unless you protect our dreamers. And we gave our word to our DACA and dreamers that we would stand by them as we have in the past, and as Republicans, if Ronald Reagan stood in the past. And unfortunately, in end of December, our Democratic leadership did not stand tall, and they allowed the CR bill to be passed, which is basically a temporary budget, which expires to Friday night, the 19th at midnight, which is my niece Larissa's birthday. And so now we're at where we are. President 45 invited some a bipartisan group of congressional members to his office in the White House, and it was on television, and he's basically said, in his own words, I will sign whatever you put in front of me. You put it in front of me, I will sign it. A couple of days later, or a day later, I'm getting to my timetable, he made the buffoon statements, the outrageous, despicable statements about people from Haiti and countries from South and Central America. As a result of that, he had two options. He could either apologize and admit he made a mistake, or he could go the route that he is right now. And as we know him, he will never apologize. So he decided to take the white nationalist view and pander to his white nationalist base like Robert Pittenger, and basically say now that compromise is no longer acceptable to him. So we are now in the situation where we are, where we thought we had a compromise, where we could pass not only a 2018 budget, our Congress could pass it, which would fund our professional military, our CHIP, DACA, all the necessities that we need to fund our government, that our taxpayers expect our government to do. And they have kicked the can down the road until today. And things have changed now. The momentum has changed, and those of us who have stood very firm saying that we should not pass a budget, whether it's a permanent budget or whether it's a continued resolution, we should not kick the can down the road anymore until we protect our DACA and dreamers. Those of us who have asked, and not just as candidates, because this is not really about us, it's about our dreamers. I asked those who are running for office in 2018 to please make this part of their platform. And we had many people respond in a very positive way who have started to talk about our dreamers and our undocumented Americans as well. But we also have had those who took pictures back in September of dreamers. They found that one dreamer they knew, I won't name any names, but everyone knows what I'm talking about. They found that one dreamer from Queen's University and said, oh, this person is a dreamer and we need to support him, but they have not said one word about this issue since then. Why? Because they're pandering to the unaffiliated, the in that group. They're not, they don't want to talk about democratic issues. But I'm here to talk about democratic issues because I'm a Democrat. I'm running as a Democrat. Not only that, but if you are a Democrat, and this is something that's very important for us to remind those who are running in the 2018 Democratic primary, there is such a thing as a Democratic platform. And for those of us who are state executive committee members, we know what the platform is. And in our platform, it specifically talks about what we stand for as Democrats. One of the resolutions that we'll be voting on in just a week from probably Saturday, I believe, when we head to our next state executive committee meeting, is to reaffirm our commitment to Dreamers, or reaffirm our commitment against 287G, reaffirm our commitment to our marginalized communities and our immigrant communities. And so if you are a Democratic candidate and this is something that's surprising to you, then maybe you're not a Democrat, or maybe you shouldn't be a Democrat. So what has changed? Lindsey Graham just came out just several hours ago saying that he is against the Republican CR bill to avoid a government shutdown. This is very, very important because it hopefully gives the courage to other Republicans to stand by our side and say this is not acceptable. We will not kick the can down the road anymore. It will also hopefully give confidence to our Democratic leadership to stand tall, to stand firm. We appreciate the hard work and the effort of a progressive leader and really truly one of our leaders who's really leading our Democratic Party, Congressman Keith Ellison, and our Hispanic Congressional Caucus and our Black Political Caucus, who is making sure CHIP is included in this as well. Congresswoman Alma Adams, who's been on the forefront of this issue. We appreciate that, and we need to continue to support them and give them words of encouragement and thank them for standing by their word and standing by democratic values and democratic principles. But we also must hold those who are on the fence, the Democratic senators who from Kentucky, from those areas who are thinking, this is not an important issue to my constituents. No, this is a democratic issue. We promised our dreamers and that we would stand by them and we would do whatever it took. So now we have the leverage to be able to negotiate and make sure that the protections are in the CR bill before it is passed by midnight tomorrow. Let me be clear. I want a clean DREAM Act. That would be an ideal situation. I don't ever want a government closed down. I actually applauded Robert Pittenger several years ago when he voted against the Tea Party, the radical Tea Party Freedom Caucus, as they call themselves now, to close the government down because of the Affordable Care Act. So I applaud that. I applaud him on that. But this is a moral issue where we're dealing with human beings. 122 dreamers lose their status every day. This is not an issue that we can continue to kick down the road and wait and wait and wait to the very last hour and see what happens. Every day that goes by, someone is hurt and financially, and families are living in fear, wanting to know what happens. So that is why I made the promise when this happened in September. That's why I have continued to make this promise, and I'm even though I've been told by members of our party that this is not a political advantageous issue to be standing on, just as I was told when we took the stance on ending the prohibition of cannabis. They said this is going to be a divisive issue. It's going to hurt the centralists. Well, you know what? This is not about the centralists. This is not about you anymore. This is about Democrats, to democratic values. This is about winning the Democratic base back, but also standing for what's right and not being a coward. Just because you want to win a couple of votes to disregard what we are as true Democrats. So, what we're doing, we're going to keep you informed on this. We're going to have a conference call this evening at 7 p.m., which is 1900 International and Military Time. We'll be posting that here in a moment for you to see how you can be involved in that. Please go to senate.gov our house.gov to find out the telephone numbers for your congressional members. You don't have to live in their district to call them, especially the Senate, and let them know that you do not want a continued resolution or a temporary budget passed unless our dreamers are protected. Also support those who are standing firm and making sure that we're making sure that we honor our word to our dreamers. We need to stand together, and we need to stand united. Let's understand what happens if there is a government shutdown so we can kind of clear the air of the confusion. We don't want a government shutdown. Now, will it be blamed on the Democrats or Republicans? That's what the political cronies are all discussing. But let's be clear. The Republicans, they run the U.S. House of Representatives. The Republicans, they run the U.S. Senate. The Republicans, they have their president. And yet they still are not able to pass a budget. They still are not able to pass legislation. And they're still not able to pass responsible infrastructure or other issues, immigration reform. So we cannot wait for them to put the big boy pants on to govern. We're going to have to help them govern until we can get them out of office. So one of the ways we can help them govern is by putting pressure on them, which seems to be the only way they understand how to govern. And that is to use the leverage that we have now with the help of Senator Graham and the help of so many other Democrats who have the courage to speak out on this specific issue, and let them know we will not stand by a budget that is passed. Senator Graham listed 2 issues why he is against this. Number one, because DACA was not included, and he was very frank in what he said. He said only a fool in the Republican Party would not know that this is what would have been expected in a budget and in a CR. But he also added another interesting aspect that even I wasn't aware of, that the CR bill that's being proposed by Paul Ryan and Robert Pittenger and those Republican cronies does not permanently fund our professional military. So basically, they're also putting our professional military in danger because they continue to not know what's going on. So if there is a government shutdown, which I would stand for if they do not protect our dreamers, there are times where you have to make a stance, a moral stance, a right stance. And this is one of those times in America. Our professional military, they are paid through January. Our people who are receiving Social Security, you will continue to receive Social Security checks. That is not impacted by a government shutdown. There are protections in that. And interestingly, one of those protections that was passed after the Republicans closed the government back down prior, they included themselves as a necessity for a government. So Congress will also continue to be paid, which I think is crazy, but that's what they had made a decision, and hopefully I will do what I can to change that if so privileged to get into Congress. But the only areas which are important, but zoos, national monuments, fee-based, what taxpayers pay for out of their pocket, not through taxes but out of their own pocket, they will be impacted. But quite frankly, those usually are benefited by the privileged and elite class who have the time to take time off of work. Our working class and struggling Americans don't often have the privilege to go visit those monuments, and when we do, we save up, and I definitely don't want that to happen. But what I guess my point is that I think that we can not see a panda bear for a couple of days to protect our dreamers, or we cannot see a national monument for a couple of days to protect our dreamers. I don't think there is any issue in that area. So please continue to stand tall, dreamers and DACA members. I'm standing with you. I'm one voice of the many candidates and the many people who are running for counties, state, and congressional offices, and we haven't even filed yet, so we don't even know who else is running. But I gave you my word that I would not stand silently on this issue, and I've been told that there is no political benefit from this, and quite honestly, that's not something that guides me. I have a moral obligation as a person of faith and as a human being to stand by those who are being marginalized. And quite honestly, it is upsetting to me that members of our privileged and elitist class in the Democratic Party, this is not an important issue for them. But then again, you know, as I've said all along, they run their campaigns the way they want to. We will run our campaign the way we want to, and the voters will make a decision who they believe they want to represent them in Congress, and especially as we approach our May primary. So the reason I made that challenge for those who are running in as Democrats in our primaries, because I wanted to get them. This was an issue that I felt that was a no-brainer. This was a no-brainer issue that we could stand in front of the cameras, in front of Charlotte City Hall and Cumberland County and all of the counties and our 9th Congressional District, holding hands, saying we stand united with our Dreamers and our DACA members. And the fact that there are those who would not take that challenge is very disappointing to me. So, once again, thank you so much, and we're going to stand by you, Dreamers. We'll keep you up to date.
Yeah!